listening to the Astral Hour. I'm your host, Astral Meadow. Join me as we take a glimpse into the mysterious. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm joined with Stijn Fawkes. He is a Dutch-born Germanic pagan, leader of the tribe of the Greyhorn Pagans, and the host of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. Stijn is married to his beautiful wife, Firefey, and is a proud father of 2 amazing children, while also embracing the father role for Firefey's son. His passions include European paganism, alternative history, diving into topics like Tartaria, the Fawkes saga, and the writings of Cat the Fryan, and exploring the occult and esoteric with great appreciation. I'm thrilled to have him with us here today to share his unique insights and stories. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for making some time to come on. I'm really looking forward to introducing some of your work to my audience, and I think they'll really be interested in the
Well,
different
I
topics.
I sure hope so. I've been studying a lot. I've been on the at least on the pagan path for close to 15 years now, but always always interested in the different things. So I'm always hopping from one thing to to another. So
Yeah, same. I'm like a lifelong learner, so always, as soon as I've mastered something, I'm on to the next thing. So I always appreciate other people that enjoy research and you know, it lights them up. So for those who don't know you or are not familiar with your work, could you share a little bit about yourself and maybe what inspired your show?
yeah, no, absolutely. I go by Stijn Fawkes. My show is the Great Horn Pagans podcast. I've been doing my podcast for I think the better part of 4 years, coming up on 4 years now. Um, I cover a lot, just a lot, really, not just pagan topics, although that is how everything started. Of course, I started deep right away. I was the first couple of shows that I did were roundtable shows on Ragnarok, actually Ragnarok, and the comparison to the end times and all the different end times. What is it, like mythologies and stories that the different people around the world have, which was incredibly interesting. And in the meantime, I've had so many different people on the show. I have had a lot of creative people, which is always great. They have the best stories. I have had alchemists, Christians, witches, um, just everything really from all walks of life, and have learned a lot from them, and have learned a lot from the things that we that we discussed on the show, and just all the other things that tickle my fancy, and that I haven't spoken about much, at least on the podcast, not full episodes. One of them being what I find just incredibly fascinating, incredibly interesting is the yeah, it's not really a conspiracy. Let's say the story mythology even of Tartaria and the
Mm-hmm.
lost empires, for example. That's one of my personal favorite rabbit holes to dive into, just because it connects to so much. And of course, every religion, every people around the world have their own flood story, for example, which is, I mean, just another global reset. Um, but yeah, mostly just pagan stuff. Although from finding the pagan path, I have been able to discover so much more. It's given me that solid ground from where I can walk other paths or find other paths.
Mhm. Yeah, I really appreciate how multifaceted your show is and just the variety and all these beautiful minds and how accepting and open you are to these other paths. And when I was younger, it was actually this old pagan man that I met that introduced me to paganism. And he kind of just really elaborated that it doesn't matter which spiritual path that I follow, I can still practice paganism. So even if I wanted to practice Christianity, I could still add a pagan tint to it. Now, I didn't decide to do that. I decided to go more into the animism and stuff. But I like that it's so accepting and open, and there isn't just one way. I think that's probably the most intriguing part about it for me. And your work really highlights that openness. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have found many pagan similarities in Christianity. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
I had a guest on my show like right before I came on here. This is a back to back for me. It's been a while, but we talked about so many things that I was like, hey, like I know this. This
Mm-hmm.
is what my people also talk about, what we have stories about too, and it all also fits or is even like written and spoken about within the Christian texts, within the Jewish
Mm-hmm.
texts. Um, One famous example that I always like to give, especially when it comes to Catholicism, is that they well really copied some of our gods
Mm-hmm.
wholesale and just gave them a different backstory. Bridget being, of course, the
Right.
most famous one. She went from the goddess Bridget of Ireland, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
to now she is Saint Bridget, who is now involved with the birth of Jesus somehow.
Right.
So it's kind of like, hey, can I copy your homework? Yeah, sure, but you
Right.
like, change it up a little so it doesn't look like you copied it from me. Um, and it's fascinating, and yeah, I do pride myself on being so open about it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
I want to I want to learn, I want to know more, I want to understand better, and in able to do that, I got to keep an open mind about
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When I was younger, I did a book report on the Mist of Avalon, and I just geeked
Oh,
out on this
cool.
book. I loved it so much. And in throughout the book, you could see the old gods sort of evolving and morphing and shifting. And it was like even the ones that still were connected to the old ways, like had this experience of like, these are our gods. So of course they're going to evolve with the times. And I think it really helped me, as I continue to learn to not be so like bitter about it. Cause it is like, okay, you're covering the homework. Like it would be cool if they paid respect to some of the other cultures that these stories originated, but it's also really beautiful that the gods somehow are able to continue to be embodied in whatever form that people need in order to connect
Hmm.
with them. And so I really loved that that was the book that really helped me see that from a different perspective of they are here, they take different forms in different cultures, and there's
Yes.
always like this underlining essence that they keep, which is really cool. So,
Yeah, no, that is very true. The Arthurian stories are
mhm.
they're absolutely awesome. I've done a whole show about them as well, and I
Yeah.
still want to know more. I still need
Oh
to
yeah.
need to read more, but I also still have a full-time job, so it's like there's
Right.
o- there's only so much hours in a day.
Yes.
Um, no, but yeah, the old gods becoming the new gods, changing with the times, as we change with the times, as the practice
Hmm.
changes with the times, of
Yeah.
course. But there's always this archetype
Hmm.
that remains, that remains the same. It may have a different name to different people, but um, it is the essence, the energy is always the same or
Hmm.
similar, whether it's from the Balkan, from the like Eastern Europe or the Celtics, or even like even the Christian stories from down in the Levant. Are they're more pagan, they're more the animists than a lot may realize. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, a Holy Trinity. Gee,
Right.
wonder where else that you can find that. It's like, well, everywhere else, really.
Right. Right. There's just so many perspectives on it. So
Hmm.
you had mentioned Tartaria. I'm really excited to talk about this with you because I have never had another friend. So me and my husband have watched all sorts of documentaries and things on Tartaria, and I've been in the Akashic Records just kind of like scoping it out, and I've been able to somewhat locate it, and I do believe that this was a real civilization, but
Hmm.
I've never had anyone to talk to about it. So, um, from your perspective, what is some of the evidence surrounding Greater Tartaria, and what is its potential historical significance?
Some of the physical evidence, let's say, are the old world buildings as they are known. These great majestic buildings
Hmm.
like the White House in the US, for example, kind of this Greco-Roman style, sometimes more Arabic, but just these great grand structures, or some of the cathedrals of old that were erected in a record amount of time. Such a giant building, and it only took them, usually, I believe it's like 30 years or something, which is incredibly fast. Especially
Hmm.
since supposedly it's all the late 1800s. So, it's still mostly horse and buggy and hand tools, and if they had electricity or electric tools to their disposal, even those would still be kind of rudimentary. And even with more modern tools and knowledge, etc., um, we still cannot build those things in 30 years. So it's like, okay, then, like, how did they do it? Did the people who said to have built it, did they build those, or did they find them and repurpose
Hmm.
them? The story about the Mudflood is, for example, is very popular when it comes to Tartaria. There is physical evidence of that. There are whole streets that are buried, like literally 3 feet below the earth. From the Netherlands to Russia to, like, you name it. Every time there are, or a lot of times when there are excavations done, they'll find, a street, or like even in Australia, they found like a wooden fence buried 3 feet into the earth, and it's like, okay, first of all, if people like buried a fence, that why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense.
Hmm.
There's no use for that. Um, so the the explanation that is given in like the context of Tartaria is the mud flood is a worldwide reset, and however the mud flood
Hmm.
may have happened is still debated on. There are multiple theories. Um, but we did get flooded. Whole stories of some buildings. There are pictures of excavations in, I believe, either in Canada or in Russia or perhaps even both that with roadworks they found a whole other story, like a three-story building became a four-story building because the ground floor was buried in the ground.
Hmm.
Um, Even in like in Amsterdam, for example, which is said to be another one of those cities, a lot of houses will have their front door will not be on the ground floor. You have to go up like 4 or 5 steps to get to the front door. That doesn't make a lot of sense, really. I mean, for Amsterdam, maybe if it's on the canals. Um, but then still, why would you have a need for your front door at such a height?
Hmm.
Is it just because I don't know, like you feel better than everyone else, so yeah, like you literally live higher than everyone else? In Amsterdam, the palace on the Dam Square, also said to be another one of those you know great like resets buildings.
Hmm.
It was actually, if we're talking about like actual Tartaria, the kingdom of Tartaria that actually existed. It
Hmm.
was the former seven-time mayor of Amsterdam who led the first expedition into Tartaria, into Tartary, and really, mapped it and wrote about it in his diary. I have the book that was published. I have it in my bookcase behind me, um, written in very old Dutch, so I have a hard time reading it. Like it's 1700s Dutch, which is nothing like, or very little like 2000s Dutch.
Right.
Um, a lot can change, and he led that expedition into like deep into Russia, deep into Tartaria, and it was like even the Russians themselves didn't have a good map of that location. So they were like, "Hey, you're making a map of these things, like you're writing everything down. Awesome. When you're done, give us a copy. Okay? We don't have any." So that also speaks for the mystery that is Tartary or Tartaria. If it is the same, it is debated, but was both a like a physical kingdom stretching from I believe like the northern tip of Russia all the way down to the Black Sea, I believe, so covering really a very large area of what is now Eastern Europe, or Asia Minor, also, Georgia, Kazakhstan. Um, and it's absolutely incredible. World fairs also, these incredible world fairs that were so incredibly sturdy, like very and just all built just for the world fair that lasted, I don't know, a few months.
Hmm.
And but like I've done some math on it, and with the amount of materials that you need, the amount of weight that everything has to carry, and with the structural integrity of the buildings itself, it's not possible. The math isn't mathing. It
Hmm.
doesn't add up. And then, like afterwards, when they supposedly spent all that money on these great buildings and fountains and man-made lakes, and even um, I believe that was the Philadelphia one, if I'm remembering correctly. They built like a railroad to it, um, which also, like, why wasn't there a road to it already? They had to explicitly build a railroad. Um, After it was all done, they tore it all down. Uh, you know, all that effort, all that money, all these great majestic buildings, and most of them got torn down. Some were left standing, but not all of them. And it's just that's also one thing that's I like we all know that when it comes to portraying splendor, um, governments don't spare any money, any effort. Um, but it still for a what is a temporary exhibit to build such grandiose structures on such a large scale, it seems like a whole lot of effort comes with that. There are no construction photos. There are pictures of of them tearing it down. There are pictures of the buildings like half built, like you'll see scaffolding and some structures that are still kind of bare, but none from the beginning, none from the what is, if we're talking about construction, perhaps even the most sensational, most important part, the breaking of the ground. Nowadays that is it's a whole thing. The mayor comes along and it's this whole thing like, oh, breaking the ground, the first, it's a whole ceremony around it. There are no pictures of it. None. It's either half built or half broken down. And yeah, people, it's just weird. There's a lot of evidence that just doesn't add up. This was a whole ramble. Sorry about that, but
No, I love it. As you were talking, it brought up a lot of things that I had seen in the records, and I love that you've done all of this logical exploration because I have seen things and I'm like, what is this, right? And when I first started to see images, it reminded me of Lord of the Rings, like the marble buildings, and
yeah,
I was like, this isn't like an advanced civilization, like this, but it's old, and it's almost like they want us to believe, that okay, like the caveman thing. It's like they're cutting out a big part of human history by disregarding these ancient civilizations that like predated some of this. I don't know. So it's like this, it keeps us like disconnected from our true origins,
exactly.
as humans. And I was like, this is amazing. I was like, I think Tolkien was like channeling this somehow. And I think he
Oh,
could see it, but because I was like, this looks like Lord of the Rings. Like it was like these cobblestone roads and everything. And I was like really immersed into it. And it is like those big cathedrals and things like that. These beautiful structures. These are not cavemen. Like this is like more advanced than we are currently. And
yeah.
it's just interesting how I feel like they don't necessarily want people, they want it to seem like, oh, it's this like conspiracy thing, or people always like to go into that. But I'm like, there's something to it. And the Mudfloods explain when I was in the records, they specifically said that Tartaria would rise. They said that when humanity was ready, that more things would come up from the earth. And that makes sense. The
Yeah.
Mudfloods have buried it. And it's almost as if we're meant to find little pieces at a time to help us like process so we can actually think about, okay, history looks a lot different, and it's almost like this gentle way of rediscovering our true history as humanity. And they also told me to pay attention to Siberia, that there would be things
That makes
discovered
sense.
in Siberia, and they said under the ice. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's so I've been paying attention because none of that made sense to me at the time. But as you were talking, I'm like, okay, I think I was onto something, and your research absolutely is in alignment. So I love the people that do that work, and help connect all these dots because it's really hard to study stuff like this. You have some people that are really ungrounded, exploring it, and then the research is, it's like if you Google it, they're always like, oh, it's like the pseudo what history or whatever. And so it's also hard because it's like this, they want you to distrust it as like, oh, this is just some fictional thing. And
Yeah.
it just doesn't, for me personally, feel that way. Like I understand like being open to maybe if maybe it is something, just a story we've made up. But I think that almost all mythologies are rooted in some kind of truth, even if we don't fully understand how to interpret them being passed
Exactly.
down. So, and I've
Exactly.
also noticed like in fictional stories, like I'm really into his dark materials, and there are these people called the Tartars. And it took me a minute, but after the records had talked about Siberia, I was reading that and I was like, the Tartars, and they're in this northern ice uh city and it has like the aurora and everything. And I was like, I think that we are channeling it. I think some people are like tapping into it, but they're just giving us little pieces. But I do think that there's a part of us that remembers, you know, our
Yeah.
true history. And I just love that more people are getting into it and sharing what they found because it's just, I think it takes all of us kind of mapping it out for us to kind of make sense of like what would this look like, and all the theories help too because it gives us something to bounce our minds off of to say, well, that could have worked if, you know. So it's almost like we have to gather to explore it, and not just rely on these elites to tell us what our history is. And I think that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. And that's why I love those, those rabbit holes and why I can get so lost in them in all the right ways, of
Right.
course. Because like it you can connect so many things to that. Like
Mm-hmm.
one thing is timeline deception, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the well, given evidence for that is that on a lot of buildings, I've seen multiple in Amsterdam. I've seen a lot in my hometown.
Mm-hmm.
They, a lot of buildings they'll like put a plaque or something with the date on it. The like built in, I don't know, like 1746 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then the one would either look more like an I or like a J, and I mean I would know how they look like. Like those two letters are literally in my name. Uh,
Right.
so and supposedly I'm not sure about this, that I mean that our calendar has changed so much over the years and that the year 2000 is just the most recent timeline that I know. But supposedly the I or the J would stand for like Jesus or Iesu. So that the like it wouldn't be 1746, but like 746 years after Jesus or after
Ah.
Iesu. And um the 1,000 years that they would be added to kind of confuse us, also kind of going into more biblical scriptures of the little season, for example, where the yeah the devil or Satan or whatever kind of evil power
Mm-hmm.
has full reign over the countries of the earth to really, recruit and seduce anyone that he feels like, and it would be after those years that Jesus would come back and set everything right again. So by adding those thousands of years, or 1,000 years, perhaps thousands, who knows, maybe it's more. Um, it would mean that the second coming of Christ has already happened, and that
Mm-hmm.
we are now either past that, or that we are like on the tail end of that little season. Because also in the scriptures it says that, or a lot of the apostles will say that you will see Christ again in your lifetimes. um and even if the people, they did live long back then. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like what a lot of people say, like, oh, it's 30, maybe 40, and then so done. They lived like well into their 70s, 80s as well.
Mm-hmm.
um but if they're like, even if they're talking to their children or the next generation, that's like 25, 40 years. um it could suggest that, he has come again already. Uh, but yeah, the timeline deception
Mhm.
um kind of connects to that as well. Because then the buildings and the structures wouldn't be from the age that, you know, we think they are, that is, that there are sets that they are in fact much older, which skews the human timeline and human progress in a, well, very significant way. Like as you said, the ones who built those structures, they either had knowledge of of something greater,
Mhm.
were or were in contact with something greater, or just were more advanced than we
Mhm.
are, had tools that didn't rely on electricity, or even if they did, not something like, oh, I have to like plug it in the wall socket,
Mhm.
but like they could take the energy from the ether and transform that.
Mhm.
Another thing that I very much like, this is a connection that I came to recently. I've had a former crop circle maker actually on my podcast. Incredibly interesting story. And what he what he told me is that they didn't even really know the design that they were making. They were guided by something else, by a higher power. And I don't know who, I don't remember who that was. I've talked to so many people lately.
Yeah.
Uh, but someone suggested that, hey, maybe like with Tartaria and the grander buildings, maybe that was, similar, that they were just told by something higher that,
Mhm.
hey, build this. And they were
Right.
like, okay, we'll build it. You provide us with the information, provide us with the blueprint. We have no idea what we're making, but we're doing it, which also makes sense that why a lot of these greater structures,
Mhm.
for example, oh God, what was the one in Turkey again? Down the Levant. Anyway, they seem to be all on the like on a similar line across the earth, on a similar point on the grid,
Mhm.
suggesting that there is something to that. Maybe that is a point of higher energy,
Right.
because for as far as we know, all those thousands of years ago, because that's supposedly how far back it can go, those people weren't in contact with each other. They couldn't do
Mhm.
like what we do now, like a Zoom call. It's like, hey, like we're starting to build here. If you could like find the spot there and build a similar structure, that'd be great. No, we're talking thousands of miles, like all the way across the planet. They wouldn't be in contact, not in the way that, you know, like not physically in contact, maybe, I don't know, spiritually,
Right.
some other way. Um, it's just it's so fascinating, and I still have so many questions, so many other theories, and
Mhm.
I keep like watching other people talk about it as well, and listening on like what their theories are, and then kind of thinking about that. I like just this afternoon in the gym, actually, I managed to watch a video, and the creator said, like, what if the Tartarians, or whoever they were, what if they did come from somewhere else?
Mhm.
What if the multiple worlds theory, or like crater theory, or any of those multiple worlds, multiple lands theory is true, and they came from somewhere else and they left these buildings and they left this knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the ruling elite at the moment who are like, hey, we're gonna like keep this for ourselves
Right.
because this is too much power for for the plebs.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another theory that I'm like kind of going over now in my mind, and I'm like, oh, there's also kind of something to that. Like we all talk about these different races, whether they be, the alien races or, the different pantheons of gods. Um, it's yeah, there's so much. There is so incredibly much, and I'm I don't know if we'll ever like truly find the answer. Maybe I don't know, maybe my kids will eventually,
Right.
but if I can get just like a snippet of it, I'd be so happy.
Right. I feel like that's where our curiosity and like sharing our stories with our children and our ancestors have passed down little snippets. And it's like, I do think at some point that it'll start to connect more, especially as we start to interconnect as Earth. I
Yeah.
think we were more divided, but like you said, even when we weren't interacting, like different countries, because it's just travel was not, it just wasn't happening. We were still channeling this similar things, like putting these structures on the ley lines, like similar shapes, similar dragons and things like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like humanity as a collective, we are tuned in to this thing greater than us. But I think when we come together, which we can now, and I think it'll be more and more like our children and their children, like I think we'll be more and more united as a collective. And as we share our stories together, it's like I think the connections will be easier to see because I think it's like one grand story. And right now we're reading like chapters here, going forward and backwards.
Yeah.
But I love thinking and reading about like how the Mayans and the Egyptians and all this, they're doing similar things without actually having direct communication. But that is just fascinating to me. Also, like with these floods and things, I've read a lot
Mm-hmm.
about after Atlantis, like that, the flood or pre-Diluvian, like that's the Atlantean times, but there were
Mm-hmm.
some beings that actually would survive. And we always think, oh, everyone must have died. But some people would survive and they would teach the next generation, which is why like Egypt was so advanced. And you're like, well, how did this happen? And it's because a lot of it got wiped out, but there were some people that made it that continued. And that's how it's just like this huge jump from like caveman to these, very intelligent civilizations. And it's all over the world. Like that same thing where it's like
Yeah.
super primitive to like, how are they building these things on these
Like
vortexes? And all of
in
them have shamans, all of them have spiritual leaders in their communities. And I think it's the shamans, whether they're from this culture or that culture, that are like, hey, this is the vortex. And it's like, I think they were all interconnected somehow, even though maybe not physically, like this is here, we're building this here, and that spiritual person in their communities were helping link it up, like helping with the building, helping with knowing certain things. So that's kind of my theory is I do accredit some of the shamans for
I
guiding.
I definitely you're definitely onto something with the shamans. Like they were, of course, in well, often in like direct connection
Right.
with the gods, the shamans, the oracles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also, back in the ancient days, and that's, another thing we're really gonna have to, rethink what the word ancient means.
Right.
But magic and everything like, like that, and just, the connection to the gods, to these, greater beings, whether it be one or several. Um, it was it was stronger. It was more normal. My wife and I a while ago we attended a Zoom conference by a very well-renowned Egyptologist,
Mhm.
and she told us as well that, in ancient Egypt, all those thousands of years ago, magic wasn't special.
Mhm.
It was it was there, and everybody had access to it. Everybody was using it, and even the guest that I had on the show today, like we were talking about, a whole lot of biblical things, etc. Like what he described with the story of Moses, for example, that was a magical battle.
Mhm.
Everyone throwing down their staffs, and those turning into the mistranslation says snakes, but it's actually dragons. Like their staffs
Mm.
turning into dragons,
Mhm.
and those battling it out with each other. Maybe that is also like with the help of magic or giants, or another field of study that I find very interesting,
Yes.
cymatics. Maybe that is how the pyramids were built. The
Mhm.
Great Pyramids, because that's another fascinating thing. Like the Great Pyramids were already ancient to the ancient Egyptians.
Right.
They already had archaeologists looking into their history.
Mhm.
And we're talking thousands of years ago, and they were looking even further back, and they already had no idea, who put them there. It's like, they, here they are, just these amazing periods, and we don't have any text, any sources, nothing that says, who built them, for who, for is it for a king? Is it for a pharaoh? Is
Mhm.
it for, is it for a god? Is
Mhm.
it even a tomb? Is it something else? We don't know. So, let's get some court appointed archaeologists to investigate that. So ancient Egypt was already investigating like their ancient
Right.
Egypt. Like they already, well, lost the answers. Like they were already lost to them, which is
Right.
so weird. And like one fascinating fact that I always like to tell is that, like we think of Cleopatra, for example, of this, this great queen of like so long ago. She lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than she lived to,
Mhm.
the building of the Great Pyramids,
Right.
which is just another indication how weird time actually is.
Right. Right. It's crazy when you are educated in like the public school system or even in the church. I mean, it's like, oh, 6,000 years and then you start to really examine it and it actually takes a while to even let your mind process how grand of a story it all is and to think about even before Earth. I mean, it just keeps going because like we're just one little dot on
Yeah.
the timeline. And when I'm in the records, I mean, it's just so big. And I have to like hyperfixate because I can't focus because it's so huge. But to me, that's so inspiring. That's so beautiful to know that there's this timeless story. I mean, it's like it goes on forever, both directions.
Hmm.
And I feel like that makes it more beautiful to me that it's not just 6,000 years old. And I don't know if I ever fully accepted that anyways. It just feels like weird. So I don't know. It's just like to have a start time so soon, like so near. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I never fully accepted it. Maybe that's some of us were just like, no, we're gonna explore that a little bit more because it's just it never added up that because that's just not that long ago. I mean,
In the grand scheme of things, 6,000 years
it's
is
like no,
it's a blip.
right. And to think that that's just humans, Earth, everything, 6,000 years. I
That's
don't
that's
know.
that's rather quick. That is
Right.
rather quick for everything to have developed up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
That is including, the part of history that we don't know, or we don't know anymore about, in
Mm-hmm.
6,000 years. I mean, that's really, really fast. It's really quick. The
Mm-hmm.
last ice age, proper ice age, was 14,000 years ago.
Right.
it seems like so long. Like if we're talking like in a human lifespan, which is increasing, of course. So let's say if we're lucky, we get to live like I don't know, like 90 years old. We
Hmm.
think that's that's pretty old already. Like we see someone walking around who's 90 years old and like you're 90? It's like
Right.
wow. But like then 14,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, millions of years ago, our planet in our current calculations in the um the realm of time that we recognize or have scientifically recognized at
Hmm.
least is what 4 5 billion years
Hmm.
old or something, and then the universe is like 14 15 billion years old. We can't even imagine that. Like we can
Hmm.
it's like go imagine a time period a billion years ago.
Right.
I mean, I struggle to remember my own childhood,
Hmm.
what I did and the adventures and all that I had. I remember some parts of it for sure.
Hmm.
But like I'm 33 years old.
Hmm.
I'm still pretty young. So a billion years. That's so much happens in a billion years. So much can develop in a billion years. I mean, just
Hmm.
look at how many has happened over the last 5 years, even.
Right. Yeah, I do feel like everyone's like, oh, time's accelerating. Well, I feel like it goes through different points where it does tend to speed up and then it like slows back down. But
Hmm.
think about how many times it's all been wiped out over the course of a billion
Yeah.
years. Like how many times we've advanced and then something like a flood or some kind of destruction wipes out a lot of the history. And then you have people like shamans, like retelling, they're tuning into that collective and they're telling these big stories about these beings that don't make any sense now. Like, why are they blue? Like, why are they so big? Like, but of course, they're in these a billion years ago, life might have looked different.
Hmm.
And the way that if they were on some other planet or something like that, I mean, the environment's different. So they might have been giant. They might have needed certain colors of skin to protect against whatever atmosphere. And so I
Exactly.
love reading mythology because I do feel like it teaches us stuff that really ancient stuff that it's almost hard to understand why it makes sense. But then when you look into it, you're like, these are universal stories though. I can advance as a person right now in this modern era by studying this myth. And that's probably one of my favorite things to do is like, how can I make this relevant to me and my experience right now? Like my living, breathing life. How can I learn from this story that found me? Because I think
Yeah.
stories find us when we're ready for them. Or we'll start to like it'll open something up and maybe we're not ready right then, but then we're like, like I did remember something about that archetype when I was young or something. But
I
I
mean,
do think
that's
mythology's alive for that reason. It's like,
oh, absolutely. I mean, that's how our ancestors, how I mean, our parents and our grandparents even,
hmm.
it's through stories and storytelling that, they teach us, about life. They teach us about, the ways of the world. That's why, people get lost in a good book. Like you mentioned
Right.
Tolkien
Hmm.
earlier. Just his world building is on another level, and he is mixing and matching so many mythologies. He's
Hmm.
he's mixing Celtic with Norse Germanic with Catholic with
Hmm.
wherever else he is pulled from. It's they're incredible stories. I mean, to the point that like I've gotten tattoo from it. I named my daughter's second name. She's named after the horse princess. Whose
Mm.
whose name is in reference to the goddess Epona, who is a Celtic
Right.
goddess of Eowyn. Eowyn.
Ah,
That's
okay.
that's that's my daughter's second name because she's also a fiery redhead. Um, and as I said, like Eowyn is in reference to the Celtic horse goddess Epona. Who are
Mm-hmm.
the Rohirrim? They are the people of their horses. Their banner is literally a white horse.
Uh-huh.
There's this just that's why world building and storytelling is so beautiful and it's so important, or even
Mm-hmm.
the fairy tales, for
Mm-hmm.
example, the stories of like the Brothers Grimm, for example. First of all, I'm very glad that Disney kind of PG'd those stories. Like,
Yeah.
yikes. Um, but there are still lessons in those stories.
Mm-hmm.
There are lessons to be learned. That is how how when an invading force like the church, for example, like made its way up into Europe, it's how we preserve the stories of our ancestors, how we preserve the stories of our gods by
Mm-hmm.
writing them down, in fairy tales, as made up stories. So we could be like, oh no, this is a made up story. It's a kid's story. It's a bedtime story. They're harmless.
Right. Right.
So yeah, just storytelling. That's how everything is preserved, and that is
Mm-hmm.
why it's so important. And that's why I believe that over the last years, podcasting, for example, has become so
Yes.
incredibly popular. It is just another way of telling our story, but now we're able to do that with people all over the world, almost instantaneous. So yeah, it's beautiful, and we should learn from these stories. We need to learn from these stories, even though time is cyclical and things will happen again.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to, or we can know how to deal with them better, how to resolve those things that come up better if we have properly listened to the stories, if we have learned the lessons of the stories that we have been told by whoever, our fathers, our mothers, our
Mm-hmm.
ancestors, the great writers, the great poets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I do think preserving the art of storytelling and humans always will, like you said, it's podcasting, like sharing Substack. I mean, it has evolved. Um, but I'm a poet and I write with the Akashic Records a lot, and I consider this to be like the sacred gift that I give back is I'm trying to preserve the art of storytelling and whatever the record suggests, like if there's a deity or a point or a theme or something that everybody could benefit from hearing at that time, I'll write it and I'll share it. And I mean, it doesn't reach very many people, but who knows, right? It reaches certain people. And it's funny because people will be like, "Did you write this about me?" And I'm like, "No, this is a collective story. It has
Yeah,
nothing to do. I don't even know you." But it is the universal principles within the stories that everyone just connects with. And I
yeah,
think it's kind of sad that some people think it's not worth their time or, people don't read anymore. And there's all these things that I hear regurgitated. And I'm like, no, I think it's more important now than ever to try to preserve and to keep
yeah,
the art of that oral tradition, to read to our children, to make it fun and exciting for them to think that way. Like my daughter just asked me the other day, like, how did that Loki story end, Mom? And it's like if you just sample little bits of it, they are tapped into that. I couldn't get my son to be interested in reading it all until I started reading Legends, and he was like, that's what he checks out at the library now. And I'm like, well,
yeah,
that was me though. I got really into Arthurian legends in fourth grade, and it never stopped. And I feel like there's something to it. And when we read that, we are tapped into our ancestors and that excitement and that love and that passion for life and the heartache. And it's all there. It's in those stories. And
yeah,
I love like modern day tellings of them too, like how we might see them in this day and age. And it's just, there's so much opportunity for creativity and different ways to keep the magic alive. And I think it's kind of our responsibility to do so for our children and their children. And so I really honor people that do the podcasting and put the work in because it is a lot of work.
It
to do
is.
it and still have a regular job and still, go to all the sports events for your kids and but it does matter and I do think it with podcasting even it's stored for as long as it exists. I mean, I'm not saying there won't be a flood and everything gets lost again, but it's there. Like even after we pass on, we did that research and maybe we didn't fully figure it out, but we did document it
Yeah.
for our children. If they're interested, they can continue that and share
We
that love for it.
yeah, we laid the foundations, or
Yes.
found the foundations really
Yeah.
again, for hopefully our children, our children's children, however many generations down the line, to pick up where we left off, and
Hmm.
go further, go deeper, explore more, think outside the box. It's like, oh, dad thought it was this. Well, I think it's this. So I'm gonna go that way.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Go do that. If you think that is the right thing, if you think that is the right path to follow, absolutely do that. Like I'm very lucky with my kids when it comes to
Hmm.
that. Like my daughter she is a bookworm.
Hmm.
Um, she is very much like her dad. She already has her own little library in her bedroom.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's your dad has I have like a extensive amount of books, and even like always buying more books because it's like, oh, this author is interesting. Oh, this sounds interesting.
Yes.
Getting that, and that's just physical books. Like my audio library on several apps is also like dozens of books long.
Hmm.
My father has his own library in his study, so it's really a thing that is going down the line. My
Hmm.
my little boy, I mean, he's a true boy. He is just rough and tough, and likes the big machinery, for
Uh-huh.
example. So it wouldn't surprise me that if he were to follow a similar path, if this continues, the fascination with especially diggers. He
Right.
loves diggers, like just these
Uh-huh.
big giant machines. Like he'll just like stand there and like look at it and just be like, oh, so like fascinated. So it wouldn't absolutely not surprise me if like he were to go down that path. I mean, they
Right.
already said like my daughter wants to become a like an inventor when she grows
Uh-huh.
up. Like she wants to invent things.
Yep.
You go, girl. And my son wants to be a scientist.
Oh, lovely.
Awesome. Go do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, because it is also through inventions and through science that
Hmm.
that we discover more. And it's also actually science that is now kind of sort of proving religion right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Finding stuff about our ancestors, and the stories that are told, that that they find those places, they find those events in
Hmm.
history. And then we're just sitting here like, I mean, we told you so.
Right.
We've been telling you for thousands of years this has happened. It's like, no, 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 it's impossible. And then they do the research, and with the
Hmm.
computer models, and it's like, you know, we found something that is very similar to what you have been describing to us, and we're not going to admit you were right, but we're also not going to say that you were wrong.
Right. Yeah, I'm all here for science finally catching up because I do love seeing the research evolve and it's just a matter of getting the funding and the scientists to care about certain things. But a lot of
Yeah.
the best scientists, I mean, we talk about Tesla as being this like huge progeny. I mean, but he's reading the Vedas. I mean, he's a guy, he's studying with like Vivekananda and all this. And
Hmm.
it's through going back that he's able to go forward. And
Yeah.
I feel like some scientists, if they have that desire, like they're going to be the best ones to help bridge the gap because they're open to learning from the past and also being able to bridge it. And I think it's amazing. I feel like they almost become their own like ascended masters. Like I look at Tesla as like this electrical
I
being
mean,
somehow,
hmm. Oh, that's an interesting
like
premise,
bringing
actually.
it to us in a
Yeah.
modern form, right? It used to be like
Yeah.
Odin or Thor, but now we have Tesla that's like bringing down electricity to help us work with it in that modern
Sure. Yeah.
way.
And
So,
I mean, also like science and magic has always gone hand in hand. Like
right,
I recently learned about Socrates, that we imagine as this great Greek philosopher, who openly said, it's like, yeah, I'm a magician.
right.
Of course I am. I'm a man of science. How can I
Hmm.
not be a magician? And it's like it was so normal. Like I said, I'm a man of science. Of course I'm a magician. How can I be a proper scientist without magic, without using magic? And it's like, yeah, that makes total sense.
Hmm.
Alchemy, magic, whatever it is, it's all like a form of science, really,
Right,
in the broadest term of it all.
right. Yeah, as an astrologer, if you go back to like Samaria, Mesopotamia, I mean, astrology predates astronomy, and it was they wanted to be able to advance their understanding of astrology, so they created astronomy, and it wouldn't even exist if the magic hadn't predated it, if they hadn't noticed the patterns and they didn't want to connect with the deities more. And it's like, without the spirituality, I don't even know if the science would be as good, or it might have taken us a lot longer to even develop an interest in it. And yeah, I love that we're in a time where it's like coming back together because our ancestors absolutely it was already merged. So it's
Yeah,
I think there was something about the separation of it that was somehow important for our evolution too, to like master logic and do the whole ego thing. But now I do feel like a lot of people have foreshadowed the spirit kind of returning and being more embraced and accepted and then like merged with the science. And that's when it's really powerful because it's like you can feel it and see it and know it
yeah,
and trust it. And it's just I think it helps people that don't necessarily have the discernment say, well, I can logically see it now. So I think it helps other
yeah,
people meet us where we've already been because I tend to just have a natural trust and this sort of a ability to kind of scope out like that just doesn't feel true. So I'm not going to explore it. That feels really true. I don't know why, but I have some natural trust for it, even if I can't prove it. So, but not everybody's like that. Some people are, they have to have the logic or they're not going to be open to certain
yeah,
things.
yeah. No, and that's also where you kind of see the split happening in humanity. Like there are still these people, and I believe like over the last 5 to or maybe 10 years, even it's become greater. Like the people who are like, no, if science says it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. Like source, it's like source is just trust me, bro. Like,
Right. It's,
um, but like there's definitely there's a split happening, I
hmm
feel, and maybe it is a very natural thing. I mean, we, as you said, like, with the floods, for example, everyone has their own flood story. I mean, we have in Europe, in Norse Germanic mythology, we have the same thing, after Ragnarok, the final battle of the gods, two humans, well, yeah, humans,
hmm
were left because they were like literally hiding in a tree.
hmm
Trees, of course, are so incredibly important, so incredibly prevalent in Europe and European mythology. So that is, the story of beginning anew. So maybe that means that because there is I do feel there's a reset like
hmm
coming again. Like we are really everything is ramping up. Everything
Hmm.
is I don't know. The world has gone crazy, but it's with a reason, and I
Hmm.
think that maybe it is the people like you and me, like the people that we associate ourselves with, that we are the I don't know, the next survivors, if you will, that we are
Hmm.
meant to be the ones who, after the reset, like either
Right.
us or our bloodline,
Hmm.
at least, that we are the ones who will help like rebuild the world, who will help, retell the stories again, rediscover ourselves again, and everyone that's going to be left behind. I mean, yeah, better luck next time, I guess.
Right. Right. Yeah, my friend's always saying she tunes into the earth a lot, and it's always the same message of you get the medicine that you need and like to fear not because it's all somehow divinely orchestrated. But to sort of wrap up, there's one question I really would like to ask. And because
Sure.
you are the tribe of the Greyhorn Pagans,
Hmm.
why do you think that tribes and close-knit communities are essential for spiritual growth and personal development at this time?
Oh, that is some question. Um,
To totally flip. Well, you're talking about your children and the people you associate with. I mean,
yeah,
I think it's important to have those people around us.
it is. It is because we help each other grow. Like I am, of course, friends with many other pagans. I am, pretty close to another Dutch pagan tribe.
Hmm.
But the way that they practice the gods that they honor is very much different from my practice. It's different
Hmm.
than how I honor the gods. But I can learn a lot from them. I have
Hmm.
learned a lot from them. I have learned a lot from, all the other groups, communities, and tribes that I have, interacted with over the years. And I think that is so incredibly important. And it's also incredibly important to have it be diverse communities, diverse tribes, because otherwise you're
Hmm.
you're just kind of stuck in an echo chamber. If
Right.
everything that you or everyone that you communicate with, every other group that you communicate with, says the same thing that you do, feels the same way that you feel, there is no growth happening. It may be comfortable. It sure
Hmm.
is comfortable if everyone just, says the same thing, feels the same thing,
Yeah.
thinks the same thing. There is no animosity because everyone's the same. It's also just it's incredibly bland. It's incredibly
Right.
boring. And like I said, there is no growth happening. That's why my podcast, why my tribe even it started with the tribe, of course, is open to everyone
Hmm.
who wants to learn, to everyone who is on some sort of a spiritual path. Doesn't matter what it is, even if you're, just interested in the stories. It's like, hey, I've heard about these beings, these gods. Do you guys know about that? And if, even if we don't, then we know other people, we know other groups, communities, tribes who do practice with, those beings, who do have knowledge with, about those entities or those gods.
Hmm.
So it is so incredibly important for personal growth, for spiritual growth, even if you don't agree with them, if you don't agree with the way that they practice their faith, you can still learn from them, and it's important to learn from them. Like they also have, stories and lessons to share.
Right.
That's why, my tribe may be the tribe of the Greyhound Pagans. My podcast may be the Greyhound Pagans podcast.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that I don't accept anyone else. Doesn't mean that I haven't had, like Christians on my show,
Right.
for example. Yeah, we may worship a different God. We may not follow the same path, but still, I want to learn. I want to learn from you. I want to learn how you think, how you
Hmm.
feel. And, hopefully they do feel the same way, or at least, I can show them that not all pagans are just these church Christian hating people, because that
Right.
is also kind of the stereotype, unfortunately.
Hmm.
It is so the connection with other communities and tribes, um, like first of all, it's also about communication and to
Hmm.
be able to help each other. Um, that's how we as a species, as beings have always survived. It's how we still do it, by going to other tribes, by going to other communities, asking them for help, asking them for guidance. It's like, oh, this tribe has an incredibly wise man who, says these things. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, maybe we should go there. Maybe we should listen to him, because we can learn from that as well. Maybe we don't agree, but then at least we've seen a different view. We've heard a different perspective.
Hmm.
Um, and I do feel like, especially in this age of social media, this age of still, ego. It's all about it's me, 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 me. Those people who are like that are incredibly lonely.
Right.
And they may have all the material possessions that they could ever need, millions in the bank, this incredibly comfy life, they can do whatever, but they're not happy because they are lonely. So
Hmm.
to have people surrounding you, a family, a tribe, a community, a tribe can grow into a family.
Hmm.
It is important in so many ways. It's important for your mental health because you have people around you who you can talk to if you're feeling down. It's like, hey guys, can I get some help with this? Like I'm really feeling down and I need somebody to talk to.
Hmm.
Or even, if it's someone from a different spiritual path, it's like, okay, tell me about your practice. How do you practice? Does it compare to mine? How does it compare to mine? And if not, let me learn from you. So it is, I believe, yeah, especially now,
Hmm.
to to be part of a community, to be part of a tribe, to be part of something larger than yourself is so important. It's how we grow, it's how we thrive, it's how we survive even.
Right. I absolutely agree. And I do see a lot of lonely, sad people. They have their books and their intelligence, but they've forgotten how to connect. And
Yeah.
I think it's, for me, I have my own little circle of people, and we tend to have similar beliefs. And that's really nice because when we talk about the gods, it's like this underlining like acceptance, and it's nice to be able to have that conversation without having to be like, well, technically, and just which I have to kind of approach it that way if I'm talking to someone from a different faith and be open to theirs. But it's also so nice, and I mean, I don't have a large community of people that have the similar beliefs, but when I have a dream or I see something in the records, having somebody that I can be like, oh my gosh, like I just saw this, and then they can also tap into it. That's really special. But I love
Yeah.
how you're bringing it into also being a part of the larger community. And I do think that it's important to practice peace and understanding and love in this time because we're really not so different. And if we can just give ourselves a chance to open our hearts and see each other as another human, like sitting in front of you, it's a beautiful thing to have those connections with others. And I do think without it, it we have that depression, that loneliness,
Yeah.
that isolation. And I just don't think that you can learn all of the stuff, but one of the reasons I wanted to start my podcast is I was like, well, I'm learning all this, but like I'm like hoarding information. And I'm like, well, what's the point in learning if I can't share what I'm learning with others and
Yeah.
bounce it off of them and then have them share? And it's just, I really do think we can use the internet in a positive way for that and to actually build with others. I think that's a beautiful gift of this time. And it just takes a little intention, and not just like wasting your time on the internet, but actually using it to learn and make those connections and not just because it can go the other way and just be like doom scrolling and then they're just so depressed and like they haven't
Yeah.
had sunlight in weeks. So I think it's all about balance and then reconnecting to the earth and like getting out of the that collective space sometimes too to recenter. But yeah, that's really beautiful. I've enjoyed following your work for the past couple or few years now, and I really appreciate the space that you hold for others. It's needed, and I think we need leaders to show the what it could look like. It could look
Yeah.
many different ways, but it takes somebody to just do it and to start it. And I really honor and appreciate all the things that you do and that you bring forward, and your research is just great, and your guests are so awesome. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
yeah,
I I do what I can with the tools that I am given, and
right.
I've been fortunate enough that I am making a small success of it. And at the very least, I am getting to know some, well, very interesting people,
Mm-hmm.
and just some wonderful souls, learning so much, unlearning so much as well. So
Yes.
much what I thought I knew, um, has just has changed over the
Mm-hmm.
years, and as some things change, I don't know, like weekly. Like I said,
Right.
the video that I just watched, in the gym about like Tartaria, and maybe they are from a different realm or a different
Uh-huh.
world. The many worlds theory. It's like I never even considered that, but now that you mention it,
Right.
yeah, might very well be because you know where are they?
Right.
So
I
yeah,
love that.
just learning a lot, having a lot of fun doing it too. And yeah, also just trying to set an example of how it can be, of how it should be. Like even my guest for today, when I was setting it up, he was like, I mean, we have opposing views. Like, I'm a Christian, right? Like, is it
Hmm.
okay if I, like bring scriptures into the show to like prove my point and everything? And it's like, yeah, absolutely, please do so if that's what you need, if that's how you do it,
Right.
by all means,
Yeah.
and it's really it's a point of pride for me.
Yeah.
I want the space to be open. I want to learn from everyone and give everyone a chance to learn from others as well. So, and I'm very happy I'm able to do that and having a bit of success in that.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. And it's been nice to actually get to talk to you directly. I've been really looking forward to this. So thank you so much for sharing
It's
your story with us.
absolutely, it's my pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. Check us out next time on the Astral Hour.